everyone. My name is Jonathan. So yeah, when we started off Knowlify, it was text to video for education. We were one of the first companies to ever do it. So we quickly grew with that. And that's the company we've gone to Y Combinator with. And then over time, the company has changed. So now we do explainer videos for companies.
Yeah, so like give us an example of the types of videos that you've been creating. I was interested when I was looking at your company because I get sold this technology a lot, which is saying take your lecture notes and turn them into videos so your students can learn about it. And usually they're pitching it to me at about $15,000 to $20,000. And I asked, well, yes, I do work at the University of Florida, but I don't have $20,000 budget to take my notes and turn it into videos. So tell us a little bit about how that those initial sort of applications developed, and where did you see this gap in the marketplace?
Yeah, so at the time, ChatGPT just got good. Basically, I think GPT like 3.5 maybe, okay. And we were in class and we were wanting like something where you can go throw in our homework problems and like understand how to do math or do physics or whatever it was. And we built it for ourselves initially, and then we realized other students wanted it, so we put out wait lists for people who are interested. In about a week and a half, we had over 1,000 people sign up. And then we released it, and we realized that students were just kind of creating a whole bunch of spam accounts and just abusing the free trial. So we were like, this is not going to work. So we just started reaching out to edtech platforms, and very fortunately, the first one we happened to reach out to, they had 3 million students at the time. They were really looking for something like this. And they were very willing to take us on early on, even though the videos were not that good. But that's how we got started. And we worked really closely with them. They were actually our first and only client for the first 3 months, but usage with them really blew up because we worked with them for about a month. And then within the first 2 weeks of launching with them, they added 500,000 new users just from our tool. And then the revenue quickly built up because it was like a per generation model. So it went from 3K in revenue first month, 7K revenue second month, and the third month it went to $11,000.
Okay, so you really had found this market opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, I know this. What year was this? What time frame did this occur in?
Yeah, this was my sophomore year, so 2025, last year. Yeah.
So yeah, 24, 25, you start to see, this, I think this whole transformation in it. And I saw some of my students also using generative AI in building new ways of studying, right? Mm-hmm. And I almost come to the point now when students ask me this question about study guides, I'm like, well, maybe you need to learn a little bit more about the AI tools that exist. Mm-hmm. Because the study guide I'm going to produce for you is very much a Gen X pen and paper type of study guide, where I used to write out notes and then note cards. So the one I'm going to give you may not be the way you're learning, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the other thing that's interesting too, is this is the way that people want to consume information. They want to turn things into videos, turn things into podcasts. So it's an interesting moment. So how did you go from this, where you were working with this tech startup or ed tech company, to now developing this broader group of customers, and then also a little bit of how the next step in that journey?
Yeah, so after the success with the first company, we obviously started reaching out to other ed tech companies, and we quickly onboarded a lot of these people because they were getting great results. And actually in the middle of summer, we got approached by McGraw-Hill and Pearson to work with them. And it actually ended up being they did not want to work with us; they just wanted to acquire us. And we turned down the offers, but we kind of thought about it. It's like we went to the pinnacle of ed tech. We were working with like millions of students were using our product. And we kind of just saw the end of the road. We didn't like the direction the company was going. And towards the end of the Y Combinator batch, when we started raising money, we had some pretty big companies start reaching out to us. So like Coinbase, C3 AI, Amazon, JP Morgan. And we realized that, working with these companies is much more lucrative. They're willing to pay more. And then deeper than that, there's just like the overall tech in there was just much more interesting. So we just wanted to go down that route. It's much more lucrative.
Yeah, well, it'd be a much broader market, right?
Exactly.
Not just dealing with students. I mean, students are very willing to use these tools, but there's a problem also. How do you generate the revenue? The ed tech space is smaller than the general space. Yeah. But I think there was one step that I wanted to hear a little bit about, because this is a question a lot of students have for me, is how do you go from developing that project here to that next step of getting into Y Combinator and getting more. I mean, it seems like what happened is you had a lot of traction early on, and so people were focused on you. But what was that like, going from being a student to being a student now with a startup, and then a startup in Y Combinator? Like, talk a little bit about that process there.
Yeah, so it was actually kind of stressful. It was actually really stressful.
Sorry to bring up a bad topic.
Yeah,
I would assume it would be stressful, but hopefully it turned out well though.
yeah, it did turn out pretty well. And to give context around, so at that point, so we actually had been working on Knowlify as a side project since summer 2024, but we didn't really take it seriously until January 2025 when we won like a $10,000 grant from OneSixOne at a startup pitch competition, which really helped us just cover costs and whatnot. But yeah, the main transition point of like being a student with a startup to like just having its own startup is basically, we were putting all of our spare time into the startup and doing, I mean, no offense, but like we were putting like the minimal amount of time into class that we could, so that way.
That's fine.
Okay, yeah.
I'm a professor of entrepreneurship. I try to tell my students, you want to get an A in my class to start a business.
Yeah, so it was really stressful, and at the time, 3 of the 4 co-founders, we decided to say no to any internship opportunities, and one of them was really good, and then the 4th one had one at Blackstone doing ML. So when we eventually moved out to California, he quit on his first day at Blackstone, which is really funny. But the main thing though is just like it took a lot of sacrifice, and it was just really just putting as much time and effort into it as we could. Now the main lever though between student with startup versus startup out in California was we got 2 pre-seed checks early on from the traction we got with the company. And then with that, we just decided to go all in, move out to San Francisco, and just see what would happen for the summer. We actually, when we moved out to San Francisco, we hadn't even gone into Y Combinator at that point, but we were dead set on getting in. And we actually turned down other firms like such as A16Z or Darmaroon Fund to get into YC, and just so happened to work out that way.
Yeah, because you saw this as being the path that was going to lead you to where you wanted to take the startup in the next level, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe talk a little bit about that. So why did you choose them over the other options? Just because of who the connections would be, or the mentors, or the funding? What was the reason? What was your reason, or what was your group's reason?
Yeah, I mean, there was a variety of reasons. So, I mean, there's a lot of hate going around on the internet right now for YC, but I think that's like largely fake. Like, if you actually look at the numbers from YC, like YC has like the highest rate of like unicorns produced ever. But deeper in that, though, like the people you meet at YC is phenomenal. Like the connections you'll make and the network effect is insane. We actually signed half of our ed tech clients from YC purely because of them. And then even people who weren't in YC, they saw the YC brand name and it really helped us carry the company forward. That's how Coinbase approached us. That's how C3 AI found interest in us. And then, yeah, obviously like the mentors, the resources that YC gives you is insane. And then ultimately, demo day where you go ahead and raise money for your company or seed round. There's no other, not VC, incubator that gets you to that level, in my opinion.
That moves you from being an idea to somebody that's within that network, right?
Exactly, yeah. Really accelerates you.
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting thing that I've been thinking about is how to better structure that process, or how to help students at UF access that. Did you have any guidance or assistance from the university or people you knew at the university? Or is it more that you just had seen that was there and you took advantage of that opportunity?
Are you saying getting to YC specifically?
Well, not YC, but thinking about going to San Francisco. Well, and if there was something in Y Combinator, like I've met an alumni who worked at YC as one of their legal experts. Mm-hmm. So I brought her onto a panel that we had for our students 2 weeks ago. So yeah, we're starting to get some connection there. Now, a few of our students have gone through the Combinator process. Yeah. But yeah, my question is how do we better connect university students to Silicon Valley or to San Francisco?
Well, I think doing programs like such as you're doing, bringing students out there, actually introducing them to the startups, the VCs, showing them what Silicon Valley is like is great. I think what Justice and Pablo are doing, like promoting the startup sphere in UF, is also great because it's like before them, there wasn't much here, and then with them, they've really grown. I think we're like a great example of like a company from UF idea all the way out to Silicon Valley. I say the main thing though for getting out to Silicon Valley and going after it is like just going out to Silicon Valley and trying it out. As scary as it sounds, but you really never know who you're gonna meet, like where that can go. I actually have like a little side story here. When we first moved out to Silicon Valley, it was 4 of us staying in a 1-by-1 basement, like this dude's basement. And because we were trying to save money at the time. And we didn't think much of it. He was like a Stanford PhD. He was like really smart. But he had this like really cool robotics company, but he didn't really talk about it much. And we would just play basketball with him and like get coffee with him every now and then. And as like literally last week, the company's called Rhoda. They just raised $450 million for a company, another company with Tesla and Figure. So it's just like weird, random things like that. Like you would never expect that happen out in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. You go out there and you just meet the most interesting people, and they don't really tell you that they're doing these cool things, but they're doing them in the background. So it's good for you to be out there. Yeah, and I think, I don't know, you probably have heard all these like started in a garage story. I think your story started in a basement or started by just going out and sharing an apartment in San Francisco for 6 months. Those are going to be some of the stories I think that's going to come out of this AI period, because you don't need a garage now. All the equipment's going to be somewhere else, but you need to be out there, which is interesting, right?
Yeah, I slept on a couch for 5 months, so.
There you go. Now you have your story. Yeah, we already worked it out in the basement on the couch. Launched this major, video generating company. Right. That's good. All right. Are there anything else you'd like to share about the journey, or where are you going next? Yeah. What's the next step for you?
Yeah, next step, currently we're scaling. So we've been working with some pretty cool companies with the new launch of the engine. And for a while, we had to rebuild it because we were transitioning from ed tech to like more corporate base. And now we're just like scaling. So we were working with around 15 companies before pretty closely. And then now we're opening up to the wait list and working with new companies. And in the wait list, there's like over 400 companies. So it's pretty exciting, just expanding that and seeing where they'll go.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then also I wanted to follow up on a comment you made earlier about OneSixOne. I think that is a really interesting resource that we now have in the UF ecosystem. And I knew that OneSixOne had reached a certain level of people awareness of them. A couple of years ago, I took a group of students to Austin. And, one of the things I think you may hear a lot about the Florida startup community is that finding early stage pre-seed funding can be difficult. Like I've had students who've had projects, they've gone to pitch competitions, and the people they're pitching to, I think, are more looking at trying to acquire a business, an operating business, as opposed to backing perhaps a startup. And that's not unique to Florida. Many places outside of Silicon Valley or Austin have that same issue. I knew I originally started working in Delaware and then later at Rutgers in New Jersey. And even in those areas, you have that same sort of issue where that most of the investors are more like in private equity or some type of financing to acquire a search firm type of investment. But when I was in Austin, I asked this question of someone who was doing the same sort of pre-seed funding, and they said, "Well, have you ever heard of this company called OneSixOne?" I was like, "Yeah, I think so." He said, "Well, you should talk to Justice and Pablo. You want me to introduce you to them?" I'm like, "Okay, sure." Yeah, I think I may have seen them once or twice in my office a few years ago. All right, but that was where I realized that we do have an interesting resource here in Florida. And so your story of where you're saying that they helped you in the early stages, it's something that I think students should think about as far as how you're going to make that next step in your development from an idea to an actual company.
Yeah, 100%. And for people who are in California it's very easy to raise capital, but in other places, like you just mentioned, it's not. Like grants from like for instance, the grant we won, it was partially UF and partially OneSixOne, I believe. Grants, state competitions, all those things really help if you can't get any pre-seed funding.
Yeah, and I'll give an advertisement for the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center. We have grants. We have the Luby grant, right, which is one where students get funding to develop their idea here at the university. We also have the Big Idea competition. How many people submitted their plan to the Big Idea competition? So if you have done this, right, so this is a $25,000 prize, right, that you can win that can also help you in the next stage. And then in the fall, we also run a AI business idea competition where, again, it's about a $10,000 prize. And that you don't even have to have a full business plan. You just basically have to have an idea. So for those of you who are interested in working here on it, come to see us about the Luby grants. Those are typically awarded once every semester. The business AI business ideas have a competition in the fall, and then the Big Idea competition in the spring. These are all other ways of raising funds from us, right? Where we're not taking any equity in the company. It's just a cash prize that can help you develop that. So there are a lot of different opportunities here. All right, so why don't we at this time go ahead and open up this for questions?
So, okay, first of all, this is a great story. It was really incredible to hear how you started as a UF student and you made it all the way to Y Combinator. So huge congrats, first of all. Thank you. And so you kind of mentioned how your business kind of transitioned from like a B2C to a B2B. right? And I was just like wondering, do you have any advice for how to get leads at some of these companies, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, we've gone viral a few times, which has like really helped with getting leads. But I mean, like more so like deeply integrating yourselves into these companies, or not deeply integrating yourself, but like actually getting like valuable leads from bigger companies. You know, I was kind of touching on what Doug was saying earlier about getting in touch with people, having something that's like a somewhat personalized message, but like more so you're highlighting and you're giving value up front, showing them how your tool can help, and even if they don't go with you, like they can still provide value in some way. And then deeper in that too, like really highlighting a pain point and like understanding them, understanding what their day-to-day is like, and then illustrating how your tool, your product can help alleviate that in some way, just on a more personal level. That's kind of what I would say for B2B. But really, it is a grind. Like you kind of just have to do a lot of outreach, a lot of connecting with people. That's what I have to say for that.
All right, so again, incredible story. I wanted to ask, because I'm just really started right now, how did you get that initial traction before you applied to YC?
Are you B2C or B2B?
We're doing a bit of both right now.
Yeah, I mean, so it's definitely like a more so like marketing front, like putting yourself out there, getting in touch. It more so depends as to what your product is. Like for us, like when we first started, like we had our friend, like to give you an idea. So when we first started the B2C and like getting students to sign up, we texted and told all of our friends about it to sign up, and then we told them that if we basically set up a referral program and that enticed people to come on to the wait list as well. And then in regards to B2B and how like we got that traction, honestly, it was just reach out. I don't really have anything much beyond just like kind of grinding it out, doing reach outs, and then just getting people. The main thing with YC though is like once you start getting traction, you don't want to lose it, and you want to keep building momentum. Like if you looked at what we did and what I've told other people who've gone in as well, like for instance, we started with 3K, then 7K, then 11K. You want to keep that momentum building, and that looks super good for YC. Actually, a lot of the companies they accept now, like they usually have some sort of revenue beforehand. But getting that initial traction is kind of, that's the hardest part. And I say it's just a grind of just reaching out to people. And if you're really good at social media, having like a viral video helps too.
Well, I think you also have to find this product market fit, which I think they found really early on the student side, right?
Yeah, I mean, finding product market fit is like incredibly hard. I'd say we got lucky in a lot of ways with that. I mean, like it so happened to be we were already working on this tool for a while, but like we got lucky in the sense of like GPT just started taking off and was like actually good. We happened to be the first company doing it, and then we happened to like reach out to ed platforms before anyone else, and then we happened to have the best video generation. So I mean, yeah, like finding PMF, but it's gonna be hard in the early days, and the only way you find PMF is by like grinding it out. There's like there's a saying by a guy named Alex Becker, and like talking about how to find PMF. He kind of says like PMF is this like treasure chest in like this dense forest, and you have no idea where it is, and you go into the forest and you find hints in the forest that like indicate where it is, but you're not entirely sure. You're kind of like wandering around, and then eventually with enough hints, you eventually find the treasure chest. So it's just a matter of going out there and seeing what works and what people want.
Like we've seen some of your viral videos, and really wanted to ask what your like go-to-market strategies. Like, what do you think is like a good way to market a startup? Is it like you start building in public and then you update the people along the way as you keep building it, or you fully build out the product and then you start marketing it? What do you think the best way is?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, okay, like firstly, so YC actually has a thing about building in public. They have said that they have never seen like a big unicorn company who built in public they've never seen like a company that's become a unicorn from building in public. Now that is a more recent trend, but I think there is something there. I think like having MVP and then constantly pushing it out online really helps. Yeah, and then I'd say overall with the marketing, so like our stuff was kind of more one-off. Like when we went viral the first time was our like YC like demo day video basically, and that brought in a whole bunch of leads. But I'd say like mainly like I wouldn't worry about going viral. It's more so just about like putting out content towards like your avatar, your ICP, and just attracting those people. So I wouldn't worry too much about building in public. Just get your MVP going and then put it out there and then reach out to people.
Hi, I'm just wondering, how do you even get an idea good enough at the right time for it all to work out?
I think that's like the golden question. But like really though, like we kind of just looked at our own lives and it was like, what was our own pain point? And then we built a product to fix it. And then it so happened to be that many other people have that. I think a lot of people, what I've heard is that a lot of people will go online and like search up problems to solve, And that works sometimes, but most of the YC companies, they actually had a problem in their own life, and they just built a solution to fix it, and then so happened to be that it affected a lot of other people too. So my advice would be to analyze your own life, or where you want to go, or wherever it may be, and see where a problem lies in.
The one would suggest don't do a parking app. It's just something I tell them like,
Yeah, don't do a parking app. Yeah, there's a lot of this. No, there's a lot.
You do a parking app when you are a sophomore at UM. And then what you learn from doing that parking app then can help you later in your life, right? Because you think it's a problem, but other people also may, your friends may say it's a problem, but getting people to pay to solve the problem may not actually be it. Like I did have problems finding parking today myself because I had to drive around. But I used to live in cities where there was real parking problems. So, there isn't really one here. But I think this idea, how do you come up with ideas? I think a lot of it is looking at what the problems and opportunities are there. And this is a process where you have to also take feedback from from your customers or from the marketplace, right? The usage that you were talking about was a good way to indicate that you'd found a solution that people were interested in, right?
Yeah, like obviously if you build something and no one's using it, that might not be a good idea. We might have to like switch it up.
Maybe just your problem, right?
Yeah, it could be. But yeah, obviously validating by other people wanting and using it is like a good indicator to keep going.
Well, and it sounds like you guys have also started pivoting and changing. The basic product's the same, but the customers and maybe how you're delivering it may change over time, right? You're no longer in the ed tech space.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor.